Hey everyone, welcome back to another video and thanks for checking it out. I hope you've been well since the last one. Today I wanted to share with you my thoughts on 10 absolute essential reverb and delay sounds that you're going to need as a guitarist in this day and age if you're playing a ton of different music styles. Now I know this doesn't apply to everyone. Maybe you have a great tube amp with a spring reverb built into it, and to be honest, there's quite no digital effect that can beat that. But maybe that's the sound you prefer, along with one, two, or no delay pedals at all. But in my opinion, if you like to dip your fingers into a little bit of everything and play a ton of different styles, I think the sounds that I'm going to show you, the 10 different reverb and delay sounds, are going to cover all the ground you're ever going to need. Now this is 5 reverb sounds and 5 delay sounds, so 10 total I think will cover about 99% of the music that you're going to need to play. Now, in my own experience, I've been working on the Cunard Queen Mary 2. It's a cruise ship. We're somewhere in the Atlantic right now, heading down to the Caribbean, and this is my sad musician's cabin that you can touch both walls at the same time in. But I've been working in the theater lately. Now this is backing up guest entertainers that will fly on that day, hand us the music for the rehearsal on that day, and then we'll play the music in a concert that night. So these are people that are bringing in a very wide range of genres to play. Like tonight we had a juggler. That was a fun show. He was hilarious. And then tomorrow we're going to have a Whitney Houston act. So the sounds we're going for here are going to be pretty contrasting. And likewise with the guest entertainers that we're playing for, we're also backing up the production shows in the theater. So these are with the ship singers and dancers, that live on the ship just like the musicians do. And basically we're doing like musical type stuff. So you might have one song that transitions from a very dry big band swing guitar type sound to an R&B track with a very heavy reverb on it in a matter of seconds. So in my experience, these are the 10 sounds that I've come up with that are covering about all the ground that I need to here. I am personally using the Empress Reverb. This pedal board's about 40 pounds, and the Echosystem over here for my reverb, obviously, and the delay. And these are great because you'll be able to store presets on them. So throughout this video, I'm going to be doing some playing samples and talking a little bit about the application of each of these sounds. But if you're an owner of the Empress Reverb or Echosystem, which are great units, by the way, I highly recommend them, I'll be sharing the settings on them as well. So you can take them and try them out for yourself at home and maybe save them to your own pedal if you like how they sound. Nobody sponsored me in this video. This is everything that I've bought with my own money. So let's get to it and I'll show you the sounds. So the very first sound I want to show you here is my standalone, very basic hall reverb setup. And this is something that I've dialed up to be pretty much an always-on reverb sound. Got a bit of decay in there, a very normal amount of decay. I think I've cranked the lows just a little bit to give it more of a full-bodied sound to make up for the fact that I've set the mix very low. And I've set the mix low so that it doesn't get in the way, even when you're playing real staccato funk stuff. It doesn't get too much in the way there. In fact, you might have a little bit of a hard time hearing it, and it's not meant to be a reverb that you notice at all. I play direct, so right now I'm running out of my HX Stomp. In stereo, by the way, so if you're listening with headphones, you're going to notice a little bit of a dimension here. And I like to run this hall reverb on all the time, just give it a little bit more of a realistic sound. When you're running direct, it's very cold normally, so I always like to have a little bit of reverb on that patch. You'll see the settings on the screen if you're interested in using it, but I do have to say, if you're an Empress user, I have the Echosystem and the reverb right now set up in dry configuration. So if you go into the advanced configurations, I keep the manuals on my computer all the time. They're very helpful. And you go in, you can decide to change the taper of the mix knob. So in the dry configuration, I find that I get better control over how much wet effect I want mixed in with the dry signal. So in other words, what I'm saying is this is different from the stock setting. If you pull this up on your own unit, these settings that you're seeing right now, you're going to have a little bit more reverb than I do myself. But if you change over into the dry mode that I use, then these settings will be exactly what you're hearing. So this hall reverb is probably what I'm playing with about 50% of the time. Just very basic rhythm guitar stuff. Playing with distortion, or if you're playing some funk stuff like I was doing earlier. So let's jump over to the corresponding first preset for the Echosystem then. Now, as I dial up this next one, I got to point out one of the cool things about the Echosystem and the reverb from Empress is how you can figure out what all your knobs were set at. Right, with presets, you can do anything to these knobs, and if you recall the next preset, everything's going to be as it were if you had never touched the knobs from that point that you had saved it. However, if you want to try and figure out where the knobs are or where they were when you saved the preset, that can be tough. But if you're watching here at this light, right now I'm on the first preset in the blue bank, you can actually turn, like I'm going to turn the delay knob here, and we'll be able to find out exactly where that delay knob was by how this light lights up. You'll see once I turn one knob, it dims. And once I hit that point that the knob was set at when I saved the preset, it'll light up to the full color. And this is how I'm remembering for myself what all the different knobs were set at. So looking at the first delay preset, you're going to notice again that the mix knob is set very, very low. And that's because it's not necessarily something that's meant to stick out in the band mix. It's more just meant to kind of sit there and fill out the sound in the same way that the first reverb preset is. So I can turn this on for, you know, heavy chunking rhythm guitar playing, and you're not going to notice it other than the fact that you get an effect of, wow, it's a little bit of a bigger band. I like to use this for intricate finger-picked passages as well. Even if I turn it off, it might not be something that you notice. So this is with the delay off. So if I play very dryly, you're going to be able to hear what the actual delay sounds like. 2 or 3 repeats at absolute most here, and if you notice absolute anything, you're probably just going to hear the first one. But it's based around a very warm tape sound here, and if we look in the manuals, which I keep on my computer at all times, we'll be able to figure out what the heck thing 1 and thing 2 are doing there on the right, those 2 knobs on the bottom. And in the blue tape setting here, we're controlling the modulation depth with thing 1 and the modulation rate with thing 2. Empress stated that they designed the Reverb and the Echosystem, the presets that are built into them, to sound good, all of the sounds with the knobs set straight up at noon. So I think it's generally a good rule of thumb to stay close to some of those settings. Obviously, if you don't want any modulation, you can turn it down, but if you go too high, it's going to get a little bit wonky. Maybe it's something you're going for, but in the context of creating sounds that fits well in most pop genres, most pop songs and pop music, I think just very simple presets here are going to work. This second reverb preset I've pulled up is probably the one that I use second most often, and obviously that's why it's in the second spot of the banks here. And this is going to be a combination of delay and reverb, actually, in just coming from the reverb unit. You might ask why I don't use the Echosystem in the reverb, and that's because I like in this setting how the reverb and the delay kind of affect each other and play off each other a little bit. Now, I've dialed this one up specifically for to fill in again. It's one that you're going to notice a little bit more than the last one, but I also use it for lead playing a lot when I'm stepping out to take a solo. So basically this is a delay and a reverb together. A good way to contrast it with a longer reverb that you'll hear in a second is that the longer reverb decays at about this rate, where the second preset is going to decay much more gradually. So it's a longer reverb, but it manages to stay quieter and stay more in the background so it doesn't get too in the way. Right, you can barely even hear the delay sound, honestly. So thing 1 is controlling the blend of the reverb versus delay, and thing 2 is controlling the delay feedback. So there's plenty of delay feedback there, but just the delay is actually kept low to keep feeding into the reverb a little bit. Again, these first couple are going to sound so subtle unless you're using headphones. Combine this preset with the first one that I showed you on the Echosystem, and it's a great lead sound. It works works great for just filling out the sound of your lead lines. I feel like I'm saying that a lot here, but you're going to notice that the first couple of presets are just meant to fill out the sound. This next one we're going to get to in the Echosystem, so preset number 2, is going to be a delay that really starts to pop out. Again, this is for lead lines mostly. So you're going to notice that this patch is actually a dual delay. We've got 2 different types of delay here. You'll look in the top left, you'll see the yellow tape light lit up, and also the digital, the red lit up. And so I've got in the digital one a ping pong, going right and left if you're in stereo, going, and I'll crank the mix on that for a second and let you hear that. So the louder sound there is the red digital delay. And then I'm going to crank the mix on the tape here, and you'll hear what the tape sounds like. So the yellow tape is emulating a Roland space echo. It's got plenty of input drive and modulation there with thing 1 and 2, and I'm running them in parallel. So in other words, parallel means they're not affecting each other. They're running side by side and they're blended back. If you want to run in series, that can be fun too. So you'll have one delay going into the other. So this delay is affecting this one, how this one reacts and sounds. That can be fun to play around with, but for standard sounds, either just go with just one delay sound, or if you want to experiment with 2, then just stick to parallel, I'd say. Now I've switched back to the original reverb preset. So the very first one, this is just my normal hall sound that's very much in the background, and that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the Echosystem presets. I'll switch back to the regular hall sound. I'll give you a little sample. This is pretty much exclusively used for lead playing. That's what we're listening to when the mix levels are set back to normal, as you see on the screen. Now maybe you can use this for some swelly stuff if you're trying to fit in kind of the place where a synth would be. Sometimes these show bands, they have a second pianist, but sometimes they don't. So depending on the ship, a lot of these guest entertainers, they'll go from different ships, different companies that have different orchestra setups with musicians, whether you've got 3 horns or 5 horns, 2 keyboard players or just 1. Some companies don't have any guitarists at all. Some companies only have 1 horn or just none entirely. Sorry, that was a tangent. What I'm trying to say is maybe you're trying to fill the role of a musician that's not in the band. Maybe you need a synth sound or something, just a pad to help fill in the sound. Again, I'm using that phrase way too much. But maybe combining this heavier delay sound with a more heavy reverb block, reverb sound preset, I should say. I'm going to dial up the second one that I just showed you, and we're going to combine the second Echosystem preset with the second reverb preset, and we'll see how they sound together. You can kind of create some pseudo pads there. And again, if you're going to combine it with even heavier reverb like I'll show you, this is going to be the third preset that I'll show you in a second. They'll last even longer. So let's skip on to the third preset now of the Empress Reverb. This is using the green ghost mode that I love and a lot of people love. It's my favorite mode personally. So as I said, I mostly use this patch for filling in pads, but sometimes I do throw it in there on finger-picked settings. But as well, sometimes I throw a heavier delay on it here with the second delay preset that I showed you. And if the band is going for a final huge chord to finish the song on, if it's a big dramatic number, I'll throw in the heavy delay and the heavy reverb together and go for a big tremolo in that last note. And that usually gives the singer they're looking for the big finish. So the ghost mode is one of my favorites. If you look at thing 1 and 2, thing 1 is going to be controlling, let's see here, thing 1 is going to be controlling the modulation, and thing 2 is controlling the diffusion. I don't know how you're going to interpret the word diffusion, but if I turn the knob, you're going to hear what I mean a little bit. Turn it up here to maximum, and then I'll decrease it back to minimum. So just kind of how the reverb disperses itself, I think, in the space, especially if you're listening with headphones and stereo, you're going to notice that. So let's move on to the third Echosystem preset. So the third essential delay sound, in my opinion, is going to be a slapback delay sound. Now I'm using this without any modulation. You'll see thing 2 down there. That's controlling the modulation amount. Thing 1, of course, is controlling kind of like the saturation that we're going for with a standard bucket brigade style or a tube delay. This might be something that a lot of country players are going for with the Boss DM2 or the Way Huge Aquapus delay. Great old school, just very warm sounding delays. So a quick delay time, and if you can see in the picture, the flashing light on the tap tempo button next to the switch, I don't know if the picture caught it or not, but that is flashing green. So this is a set tempo. This isn't going to be affected by the tap tempo switch or the global tap tempo that I'm running at that moment. This is just a pull it up, and it's always going to be the same delay time. Just one echo, that's all you need, no modulation on it. And this is kind of going for like an old school rock and roll. On ships, for some reason, we get Elvis impersonators. I don't know who would want to see that, but we get Elvis impersonators, or some other people doing old school rock and roll stuff. Chet Atkins maybe, kind of that style, and it works for that. So just a basic slapback sound. I like to combine it with the hall reverb that you've been hearing so far while I've been playing, but also with the spring patch in the reverb. I prefer to go with the red one here. I'll show you the settings. And the Empress Reverb has gotten a lot of criticism by people that have bought it for not having a great spring patch, but in my opinion, I don't think I've ever really heard a digital spring reverb that has nailed the sound of an actual spring reverb. For sure, there's better stuff out there than the reverb settings in here. They are a little bit disappointing, but I think it gets the point across at least. You can identify that it's a spring reverb if you're a guitarist, and it fits the role of it. So I'll give you a sound sample of that now. So that's my spring reverb patch, the best one that I could dial up on the Empress Reverb. Guys, let me know your opinions on that, and also the other stuff as we're going here. If they sound good to you or bad, talk trash if you want to. What would you change, or if you think they fit well? And also let me know about your own setup. I'm curious to hear what you're running and how you're working to figure out as many different sounds as you can. So in my opinion, trying to come up with the most realistic sounding spring patches, I think it's a matter of perspective. So with the extra controls here, thing 1 and 2, I actually have them pretty loud, and if I turn up the spring reverb with the mix knob enough, you're going to notice that it sounds pretty unnatural. So the red spring reverb is the overdriven reverb setting that Empress has made. So thing 1 and 2 are controlling different parameters of the spring, the rattle and decay level with thing 1, and the breakum amount with thing 2. So I have them turned up relatively high. But when you think about the actual mix that we're going for with a spring reverb, right, in the most tame situations, it's never quite too loud, but the decay is there plenty. So I've turned up the thing 1 and 2 parameters to make sure that we're still hearing that in the low volume, but that hopefully it's not becoming too obnoxious. So let's combine the spring reverb, how I like to use it, with the slapback. This is a cool sound. I think they work great together. Let's move on to Echosystem delay preset number 4 now. So I'm going to show you presets 4 and 5 on the Echosystem back to back because these are rhythmic sounding delays. One's a dotted eighth note and one's a quarter note. I'll show you the settings for these here. So preset number 4 is a dotted eighth delay, and I have it just set up with 1 or 2 repeats. Not much modulation on it at all. I've turned up the tone a little bit so you can hear it better. So if you're following along, you're going to notice here that I skipped the first preset in the green bank of the Reverb and the Echosystem, and that's because I have the same preset saved into the blue bank, so you've seen it already. And this is so that when I switch between the blue and the green banks, I can still have access to a very basic delay sound or a very basic reverb sound. Just my standard hall reverb is in bank 1. So on the Echosystem with the dotted eighth delay, with the Echosystem, by the way, I have it always routed up with an external tap tempo, so you can see that blue light here flashing when I change tempos here. And I rigged it up with an external tap tempo so that I could free up this switch to be used in the bank system that I'm using it in versus the scrolling system. So with the heavy delay presets, I've set it up so all you have to do is tap in the tempo of the song, and the Echosystem is going to take care of determining the ratio that you need, the subdivision. And likewise with preset 4 now, we're switching to a quarter note delay. So keeping the same tempo from before, you're going to hear the quarter note delay. A different sound. It has its own place versus the dotted eighth, but I think they're both useful to have if you're playing pop music. Now to finish it off, I'm going to show you the 5th reverb preset. So in contrast to the blue bank, now in the green bank, instead of a long modulated reverb in preset number 3, now in the 3rd preset of the green bank, we have a very long but clean reverb. I like to use this in the same way that I use the modulated reverb for mostly pads or maybe finger picking passages with a really heavy verb where you want the audience to hear the reverb, or maybe stuff where I'm just playing a single clean chord and I'm holding on to it for 4 or 8 beats. It gives the effect that the guitar is sustaining a little bit longer, and again it adds some body to the sound and helps the band sound a little bit more full, in my opinion, when you're playing a simple part like that. So this video has been my suggested settings for 10 absolutely essential reverb and delay sounds if you're into playing a lot of different styles. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it got long. I haven't edited it obviously yet. I'm still filming, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty long video at this point. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking around, and if you're interested in more videos, make sure you check out the ones I'll leave on the screen at the end of this. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.